welcome everyone. I'm Sarah Robson from Workforce Windsor, Essex. Thank you so much for joining us today as an extension of the AI Summit. We have our wonderful bonus session today. Excited to go through it. We've got AI policy and governance, responsible AI for employers, frameworks that you can apply from day one. We're going to learn how to implement responsible AI practices from the start. We're hoping to learn how to integrate responsible AI into the company, why implementing compliance and ethics early sets up our AI for long-term success, and then some practical frameworks for future-proofing for AI adoption. I want to welcome Fion Lee-Madan, the Chief Product Officer at Asenion. Fion brings a rare blend of technical acumen and strategic vision as co-founder of Asenion, a comprehensive AI governance platform. Her experience expands leadership roles in high-growth technology companies, including Intuit, Sapient, and formerly Fairly AI, and she has earned accolades for her role in digital policy, ethical technology, and sustainable innovation. Asenion, headquartered in Toronto, is the new unified identity of Fairly AI, following its acquisition of Ant AI in 2025, creating a full spectrum AI trust, risk, and security management solution for responsible AI. Welcome, Fion.
Thank you very much. I know I didn't make it easy for you. Thanks for the introduction. Okay, let me share my screen and welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good day wherever you're dialing in from. I heard about the AI Summit. Sorry I had to miss that, but here we are. Hopefully you learned something useful here. So the team is going to take questions and help me because when I'm presenting, I cannot actually see anything that's typed into the chat. So we'll probably do the questions at the end. My presentation usually lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, so we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer questions. I put my LinkedIn URL in the chat. Feel free to connect with me and follow up if you have any questions as well. So today we're going to talk about responsible AI, but I tailored it specifically for employers. Frameworks you can use and apply from day one. So what is AI governance, right? Why it matters for your companies. So there's three major, I think, reasons why employers like yourselves would want to make sure you have proper AI governance and policies in place, right? And governance does encompass policies and controls. And, it's about the people, processes, and technology in your organization. So risk mitigation in the current environment, that's one of the main reasons why companies are coming to us for AI governance advisory and help. And there are regulations around the world that are being proposed or already passed in the to make sure that when you're adopting AI or whether you're building in-house or buying third-party tool, have proper AI governance in place. And in Canada, we actually had a bill that was introduced during the last administration. Ultimately, that was not passed, and our circle of experts thinks that is going to be probably completely redrafted before a new bill comes into effect. The other side of it is like the Minister of AI, our new Minister of AI, Solomon, has been championing responsible AI adoption in Canada. And he has also said that, less emphasis on regulations, more emphasis on promoting adoption. And at the end of the presentation, I'll share a link. We're actually part of a government-funded program. It's an organization called SenGen. They just received $45 million from the federal government to help SMBs, startups to adopt AI. So like your organization may be eligible and, you can apply it. And with our solution, our services is bundled into that programming. So all companies that, are adopting or building AI, will have the AI governance, risk, and compliance solution from us in place. So why do this, right? One of to actually do the risk recommendation according to, the adhering to the policies and guidelines that is either set out by external parties like the governments or internal policies and procedures. The next part is very much like, other evolutions of technology. When a new technology comes out, usually there's a lot of misinformation and trust issues. And thanks to ChatGPT, I think that has accelerated and also amplified the trust issues around adopting this new technology. When you ask ChatGPT, 1 + 1 = what, right? Sometimes it gives you the right answer, sometimes it doesn't. And then when you can ask the same question in multiple different ways, you definitely get multiple different answers. So unlike traditional software, 1 + 1 should equals to 2. If it does not, it the person that is using the tool or your quality assurance team can easily say that, oh, that fails, that's bad software, we cannot use it. But with ChatGPT, right? And when it gives you a different answer every time, people have this, understanding now that is not always correct, but is it good enough to use, right? That becomes a policy issue, a governance issue, right? For some cases, at the very high level, right? For some cases, when it's considered very high risk, if it gets it wrong, it can kill somebody, right? A lot of the medical use cases or AI use cases in healthcare can potentially actually cause someone to die when it's not giving you the accurate information. Like those are considered high risk or critical risk, and therefore you will need more testing, more policies and controls to make sure everything, all the people, processes, and technologies in place before you can understand how to approve this AI solution and also continue to monitor it once it's been approved. Right. For HR use cases for your employer, there's a lot of HR AI tool right now that is also considered high risk because when you're doing employment decision, whether it's, for finding candidates, external candidates, whether they should be, recommended for an interview, to internal use cases, whether this employee should be promoted. There's a lot of AI tools or AI enabled tools that is using to help with these decision support. So there's already regulations in certain states in America, such as New York, Colorado, and Texas, that are requiring employers who are using these AI technology to have third-party audits, third-party risk and impact assessment done before they can, continue to use these AI component. The other issue we're seeing from a stakeholder point of view, like internal, external, when I talk about stakeholders, internal, external, it could be your employees, could be your end customers, it could be your investors if you have investors, is when they ask you, when they know that you're using AI, how do you know that the AI is good enough, right? Again, thanks to ChatGPT, everyone is skeptical about some of these AI solutions. So if you just work with an external vendor, they may give you something like an accuracy score that says, oh, but my AI is tested and it's 99% accurate, right? For a lot of non-technical users, they would be like, oh, the vendor said it's 99% accurate. Should I trust it or not? And that's another reason why having a proper GLC understanding and proper, governance, people, process tools in place is important because the the number one question you should ask your vendor when they tell you what accuracy metric is, what's the sample size you use to measure the accuracy rate? Because it's back to AI is probabilistic. So if you test it only on 5 people, for example, and it's 100% accurate on 5 people, is it good enough? In most HR cases, that is certainly not good enough. And now when you talk about, is it only tested on, for example, female versus male, that's also not good enough. And when you talk about, especially in hiring, there's diversity, inclusion that needs to be involved, and having a representation of all different ethnicity and race could be an important equation, right? These are actually things that the New York hiring law, if you want to look it up, it's New York hiring law, New York City Local Law 144, require any employer using these third-party or in-house built HR tool to get tested before they can, be compliant. Testing that it's been shown to not bias against gender, race, or an intersection of gender and race. So that is where I think the stakeholder trust really comes in. Like if you're an employee or a candidate that's trying to apply for a job for your company and know that you're using an AI tool to do it, right? What kind of policies, procedure you have in place, right? So like New York hiring law is just for the testing, but like Texas and Colorado both calls for, well, one, you have to disclose that you're using AI, and B, you have to show there's impact assessment done, risk assessment done on your actual AI tool. So we haven't seen that in Canada yet, but from a legal protection point of view, existing regulations like human rights, Fair Employment Opportunity Acts, etc., already apply. Doesn't matter if it's AI or non-AI. So if you're adopting AI tool and you have these proper governance tools, processes in place, then you're basically covering a lot of future liability issues um, from day one, right? So then the third one is market differentiation. I think this more applies more to if your organization is selling a product or services and they know that you have, trustworthy AI principles in place and as an organization. Um, and I think from that point of view, where we're seeing adoption on, AI governance as a market differentiation is usually B2B companies that are trying to sell to, other enterprises that are more mature in their AI adoption journey, and they are being asked for their AI certification of trust, essentially, right? How do I know that your company or your product is trustworthy? So I talk about a lot about like AI governance and touch upon a little bit about testing. So how do you actually do proper testing on probabilistic AI system? Again, right? With ChatGPT, we are seeing these issues that is not always giving you the correct answer. We call it hallucination. But there's definitely other issue with AI, and that's why you need testing. Traditional security issue for traditional software, right? All those cybersecurity principles also apply to AI systems and application. Doesn't matter if it's AI or non-AI. Same as privacy issue. Doesn't matter if it's AI, non-AI. Existing privacy regulations apply. Are you using, private data to train your AI model, or your vendors using private data to train your AI model that has copyrighted issue, right? For some organization, right, depending on their risk appetite, they know that, the vendor cannot prove where their training data set came from. So therefore, they are not going to approve procurement, is not going to approve, buying this tool, right? If your organization have that kind of policies, governance, and awareness in place. So as an employer, right, if you're procuring third-party HR tool that have AI component, those would be some of the questions and policies that you would need to establish and think about. Um, from the, data sourcing side, but from the testing side, like back to, if they claim there's any accuracy, then, making sure you understand how the test was performed and having, understanding of what kind of test is needed and how do you actually even tell the test results is good enough, right? All those things is basically under the umbrella of AI assurance. And then when do you actually test is another question. Do you test before you actually deploy the tool? Right? Certain jurisdiction law already call for, yeah, of course you need to, test, for bias before you deploy this HR tool. I mean, it's also just good software common sense practice to test before you actually use the tool. Then once it's in production, and this is another major difference between traditional software that's deterministic versus AI system that is probabilistic. When it's in production, it now for the first time can be seeing new data that was not in its training data set. So how does it perform? How accurate it perform against these new data that it haven't seen, right? Becomes a part of the policies and solution that you need to have in place to have continuous monitoring. If some of you may have came across some news article like um, Amazon had a HR AI algorithm that was preferring men for all tech jobs. That was about 5+ years ago now. So, before ChatGPT. The reason was it wasn't because they were, you know, on purpose training the AI to only hire men, but it's because the AI was able to pick up patterns essentially in the resumes, historical data. Men historically were being hired for a lot of tech jobs, and AI actually amplified that. And because a lot of resume don't really say, this is, male or female. A lot of these AI did not train with, these protected characteristics, but it can pick up patterns from could be first name, last name, right? In some culture, it's very easy to identify based on the name whether it's, a female or male. But a lot of resume also, do not use first name, last name in the actual resume matching algorithm. But then the AI was found to be able to pick up because this person was in a women's basketball team, therefore she must be a female. And therefore, right, based on historical pattern, men were preferring for this kind of job, and this candidate is a female. Doesn't matter, I mean, it does matter if there's other criteria that they are using, but because of this one simple fact, right, the AI could pick up this clue and therefore excluded it from the selection list, the short list of candidates. It's things like that's why you need proper testing. You don't, especially if you're buying tool and you don't understand how the AI was trained. So we call this kind of testing essentially AI assurance or white black box testing because you don't actually need access to the actual AI algorithm to do this kind of testing. You're really just testing the input and the output to make sure there's no bias. So the other thing why you need AI assurance is, once there is actually a product in production or you're using the AI product to do candidate screening, right? Um, some of the more mature organization and one of the most mature AI regulation in the EU called EU AI Act already asked for having a way for end users to report any issues like incident response. So kind of like a whistleblower hotline that you need to implement in order for someone to complain about your use of AI, essentially. Right. So EU AI Act, I'll talk a little bit about that. It's from the same governing body that came out with GDPR, which became the global, gold standard for data privacy law around the world. GDPR is the gold standard for data privacy law around the world. So a lot of people are looking at the EU AI Act as the gold standard for AI regulations around the world. And some of these AI assurance items that I'm talking about is honestly strict from the EU AI Act. You have to have like pre-deployment testing, continuous monitoring, incident response, and regular audits for high-risk use cases such as HR use cases that's using AI to help with decision support. Um, because if you're doing 100% automated AI, that already failed some of the regulatory requirements, like never use an AI to make hiring decision 100% without human in the loop, right? That's already against these regulations. But you can use it to do decision support, like shortlisting candidates, as long as you still have access to all the candidate pool, for example. It's one of the requirements for the New York hiring law. So all these nuances essentially is what is the AI assurance side of things about. And I hope I explained enough about like why you need both. Governance is about having the right policies and procedure. Assurance is actually making sure that you're following these policies and procedures, essentially. And I mentioned a few laws, the New York hiring law, the Colorado law. So the New York hiring law was passed and enforceable since 2023. Colorado AI Act is only going to become effective in February 2026. So if you're hiring people from these states and city, then you need to be compliant. If you're only operating in Canada, then probably you don't need to be compliant, right? Texas is going to be effective. I believe it's actually already effective yesterday, October 1st. And EU AI Act, it is already effective for the large tech companies that are building these foundational models like ChatGPT, OpenAI, or Google, Microsoft this year. But next year, starting in August 2026, if your company is selling into EU countries or have offices in EU or hiring in EU, then you need to be EU AI Act compliant by August 2026. And for them, right, like if you're a high risk use case, then you need that third party audit. But if you're not a high risk use case, you still need to show that you've done assessment to prove that it is a low risk use case. So where to start? A lot of things to take care of. I would say there are actually over 3,000 AI governance framework out there right now that you can leverage. But a lot of the SMBs we work with, we start with I think these two. NIST AI Risk Management Framework is one of the more comprehensive but also accessible framework. It is put out by the US government. Unfortunately, we don't really have one right now in Canada that is as comprehensive as NIST. And it has four core components. I have a slide in the next slide to go into more details, but it's basically setting up your governance principle, mapping them to your organization's people process, right? And then having technology to measure and then managing it ongoing for ongoing compliance. For something less sophisticated, there's the Microsoft Responsible AI Framework, which I've also recommended to a lot of the SMBs. It has 6 principles, and it has been, validated by organizations big and small. So it talks about fairness, reliability, which is where the accuracy comes in, safety, privacy, inclusiveness, which is where bias really also comes in, and transparency. So you can Google that, or I can, send a link after this webinar. I'll have the team send out these resources in a follow-up email. But for example, looking at the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, governance is to establish the structure, policies, and accountability measure. MAP is to identify the AI risk that's specific to your context and use cases. Then you measure by quantifying these risks using appropriate metrics methods, and methods usually is a type of technology. And then you have like managing the ongoing, responses to address, monitor, and improve your risk management. So it is what we call risk-based approach, looking at the risk tiering and then deciding how much, GLC you need to do. So from the assurance side, there's two. This is, I would say, the more leading edge frameworks. A lot of people started with the governance, very, traditional policies and controls. But then assurance is taking it one step further. And this is a requirement, again, by a lot of these upcoming and existing regulations that's already passed in the AI world, right? It's not good enough to say you've done bias testing. That's more of a policy control question. Did you do bias testing? Yes or no? If you say no, then you failed. If you say yes, that's also not good enough, right? In the EU AI regulation, right? Compared to traditional GDPR, that's one major difference. In GDPR, you can answer a yes and no question and you can be compliant. But with EU AI Act, you have to actually show how do you know, the test result was good? How do you know you've done the right kind of testing, right? So that have a lot to do with how we actually test. That's what these AI assurance frameworks about, right? So at the minimum, you need to do something what we call stress testing, scenario testing, benchmarking, and testing against historical data, right? So these are some of the common frameworks both of these nonprofit or think tank covers. AI Firefly Foundation is based out of Singapore. It's very well renowned because of the Singapore government. They were actually the first government to introduce an AI governance framework back in 2019 during the World Economic Forum in Davos. And if you don't know, Singapore actually have one of the highest numbers of data scientists per capita. So Singapore math is world famous also. So they have a lot of what we call technocrats, people that understand the technology and also people who understand the policy side of things. So that's why they've been leading in that side of the whole AI governance, AI assurance side of the ecosystem. ML Commons is funded by the big techs. It's a group of AI researchers that actually have published other standards in the past, like, for example, during the cloud migration days. So they're now trying to establish benchmark for AI and AI security in particular. So I'm actually going to skip that in the interest of time. So all of that, right? If you want to actually have a proof of trust, certification of trust, we call it, the ecosystem has advanced into having now an ISO certificate. I don't know if some of you have, worked with any ISO certificate before, but there are established ISO certificate, which is an international standards organization for cybersecurity, privacy, right? Before AI. And this 42001 is one of the latest flagship certificate management system standards for AI. And we actually piloted this with the Standard Council of Canada, the British Standard Institute, to prepare for a mass adoption of AI. So if you're interested, I can go more detail into that. Usually when you're trying to prove to, your end customers or anyone in your ecosystem that require you to show that you have done proper GLC for your AI, this is the certificate to show right now. So action plan from day one. Choose your framework. So I've shared four frameworks, two from like the AI governance framework, two from the AI assurance framework. So those are, easy to implement. They have playbook, workbook that goes with them. Then, if you're ready to adopt AI or if you already have AI in place, you can then start implementing the basics from these playbooks. And then if you're planning to scale it up, right, you can actually do ISO 42001. We've done it in less than 4 weeks from nothing to having all the proper policies, controls, and testing procedures in place for a lot of the HR vendors. So if you're procuring, that's the other angle I should mention. If you're procuring HR AI technology, like we've worked with at least 3 or 4 Canadian companies. Some are established, just adding AI to their existing products. Some are, completely new AI startup that is trying to break into the HR market, right? They have gotten their 42,000 certificate. They've gotten their HR AI algorithm audit for New York Hiring Law 144. So there are vendors already there that are seeing, making sure they have proper GLC for AI HR tool in place as a competitive advantage. So when you're procuring these AI tools, you can ask them, hey, where's your certificate of trust, right? Whether it's 42001 or that's actually the only one that you can get a external auditor and certificate right now. So that is probably the one you should ask. But you can also ask if you have any AI governance framework, AI assurance framework in place and show me the results. But that requires more of internal expertise to then determine that whether anything they show you is good enough. For 42001, you have that external auditor that did that validation for you, essentially. I think is one major advantage of why you would want to ask for that. And with that, I think that's the end of my slides and happy to answer any questions.
Hi there. I was just thank you for the presentation. This was a lot of great information. I was just curious, like when you see kind of like these needs, are you finding that it's more like I guess national or global, or are you seeing that companies like here in the Windsor Essex region like are kind of starting to get more into the AI where you see like this type of stuff is obviously going to be needed for them?
Yes, so I think there's two way of thinking about it. I'm assuming like this goes hand in hand with AI adoption, right? Why do you want to adopt AI? So what we're seeing is like AI is for the first time become a very powerful tool for regional, local, small boutique firms to compete at a global scale, especially for things like traditionally very services heavy, like law firms, right? Instead of hiring 100 junior lawyer to do this manual, work, now you can use AI agents and AI chatbot to do the, traditionally very manual work. You still have, the senior lawyers to review it. But instead of hiring 100 junior lawyer, you can have one AI to replace 100 junior lawyers, right? Same thing with programming, any software development work, like in our line of work, right? Instead of hiring, 10 junior developer to do the work, we have AI coding assistant that can do the junior work, and then we have the senior, developer that can verify the work. They become 10 times more.
Ride or back, your best bet. Right. No, it makes perfect sense. Okay. Great. Great to hear. Are we going to have access to these, like the slides and or the recording?
Yes, we'll make sure that it's available in the AI Workforce Summit post-event toolkit, and everyone will get emailed out to them as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fion. We've got another question from our fantastic partner from WeTech, Yvonne Pilon, in the comments. Can you tell me about Asenion and your tools? Also more about the funding available to SMEs.
Okay, so I'll start with funding first. So this is the new partner that we have. So they got I think the new figure is actually $50 million to open 8 living labs across Canada to help SMBs and startup scale-ups to adopt AI. And when you go through their selection program, there's a separate application process to see if you're ready to, go through the ISO 42001 certification and assurance process through us. So that is where they would match 50% of our product and services, so that it helps you to, adopt it with a lower upfront cost. And they do other matching as well, not just us, like they have other services. I think Compute is another one. For those of you who are not, in the technology field, like some of the compute requirements to train these AI models is huge. But thanks to, again, all these foundation model, ChatGPT, now it's actually a lot easier to build AI product or services by using some of these foundation models. So the upfront cost to actually train and build AI services and product has significantly reduced. A lot of people actually comparing to cloud migration day before, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure Cloud existed. People have to set up their own servers, own data center, right, in physical locations. Now they can just click a button on AWS and Azure and GCP, Google, and they have, an entire data center setup, essentially. So those are things that we're seeing why AI is all of a sudden become huge is because of these foundation model, availability of foundation model and availability for any application developer to build on top of these foundation model. So our services typically cost between $5,000 to start and up to $50,000 depending on really how big your organization is and how many AI systems application you have in place, whether it's third party or internal. Do you know if any governments have a plan on taxing the use of AI in replacement of labor? That is actually a very good question. I'm in a few think tank discussion right now where, AI replacing labor is definitely top of mind. Personally, I'm a parent. My kids are 14 and 11. I have a hard time of, guiding them what they should study in their future right now. I mean, they're still a little bit young to think about university, but I also mentor, high school students that are in grade 11 and grade 12. Well, it used to be that, if you're good at math and you want to, get a job in tech, then definitely do computer science, right? But right now we're seeing a lot of new grads from computer science, unless they have a AI specialization, it is, not as easy to get a job in software programming, software developer job anymore. because of these AI coding assistant, right? In fact, it was published in the article like an internal memo from Shopify, right? That said, like we're not going to hire anyone doing, any tech jobs until you can prove that AI cannot do it, right? They actually, and I know people who got affected, right? Fired all their junior developer that they hired honestly overhired during the pandemic, paying ridiculous, like paying like very much high prices. I shouldn't say ridiculous, but in my mind, like because I started as a junior developer, right? Like during the pandemic, junior developer that didn't even do like a proper computer science degree, right? They went to a boot camp for 2 months and they would come out of the boot camp and get six-figure salaries. And when we do a technical interview with these people, we'd be like, there's no way we could hire them, even as a junior developer, even it was for free. It was that ridiculous during the pandemic, right? Just the lack of tech talent. But I think after the pandemic, that kind of got reset, and like companies like Shopify that overhired had to let go of like a lot of engineers, and that flooded the market with more engineers, and that's why it's hard for a lot of computer science grads, new grads, especially get jobs right now without any work experience. So back to your question of any government have a plan on taxing. I don't think they have a plan on taxing specifically, but there's definitely a plan of how to address, or at least thinking it is a topic to discuss about, job replacement and AI. And some of the more advanced country like, China actually has a very advanced AI, strategy as a nation. And all their, school age students have to have AI literacy course training now, right? For example. So those are the things that I'm seeing like the the Canadian government are thinking about and may introduce. Are there any other tools or templates you can share for employers and SMBs? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so like the NIST framework actually does come with a set of templates, like spreadsheets, playbooks that can share, same as AI Verify Foundation and the other two. So yeah, definitely I'll share those links with your team, and you can send it out for all the attendees afterwards.
Sounds great. Thank you. And just a question from above, is there anything funded for healthcare organizations?
So there is an organization called Mars. Let me Google this. They are very much focused on the healthcare sector stream. I don't know what the funding situation is, but I know they used to offer a lot of services to help healthcare adopt AI. Just trying to find the link here. Okay. So let me put the link in the chat. Yeah, take a look at that. Mars is also a government-funded accelerator. Funding for municipalities. That I'm not as familiar, but I believe federal governments had a few funding initiatives that applies towards nonprofits. I'm not sure if municipalities fall under the categories of nonprofits. Usually I see more because I'm a startup technology company. So I see more of like municipalities giving away money rather than funding for them. Do you think it's better for individual organizations to use their own AI tools and models for daily operations, or should the government roll out standardized AI tools to be used nationwide? I think it's definitely the first. Just like, if you think of AI really as just another kind of software, like I don't see how government can enforce everyone to use the same software. In fact, the thinking in the Silicon Valley side of things, where there's a lot of funding being pumped into startups that's building AI tools, right? Their thinking is that AI is really like databases in the 80s and 90s. If you're building software and you don't have a database in the 80s and 90s, are you even building software, right? So now it's like if you're building software and you're not incorporating AI, are you really building software? So I think AI is probably here to stay, but it is very much like a car, right? No matter how many times you test a car, there are still what we call residual risk. That's why there's seatbelt and airbags in your car to protect, the passengers and the driver. And there is traffic light signal to make sure there's law and regulations to protect, the society and people. And the AI world is very much like that. No matter how many times you test an AI system and all the components of an AI system, there are still going to be residual risk. That's why there's what industry call guardrails in place. And when you hear the word guardrails, most likely they're calling that co-level guardrails. So when you ask ChatGPT a question that is not supposed to answer, like show me a bomb recipe, it's going to say, sorry, I cannot answer that. That's a co-level system prompt guardrail. But the more mature company, and we do work with some very mature, like the Big Four consulting company, right? They advise their clients, right? And they in turn themselves are enforcing these policy guardrails that make sure there's a clause in your policy that says, we're not liable if you use our product or services that have AI in it and it gives you the wrong answer, right? So liability issues, policy guardrails, equivalent. And that's why if you notice Microsoft, Google, all these big tech company are changing their terms of use, acceptable use, right? And to protect, themselves. And then there's insurance you can buy, very much like car insurance, cybersecurity insurance. There are now actually AI insurance you can buy to cover the unknown risk. Okay, what would you say to employers scared or conflicted about adopting AI? Do you think AI is critical to businesses in the future? That is another great question. So I think there are a lot of fear and unknowns about AI right now. And yes, there's employers that are scared and conflicted about it. That's why having this governance framework in place is actually useful. You have a systemic, standardized way of assessing risk. And I would say 90% of what we're seeing is actually relatively low risk of AI use cases. Like right now, all these AI agent summarizing or recording the meeting and doing summarization note. As long as not you're just taking the notes and making a hiring, firing decision, for example, of me, because I'm the speaker, then you're probably low risk, right? So like having a systemic framework, policies, assessment tools to, determine what's considered high risk, low risk, right? You can easily adopt low risk use cases right now. A lot of marketing use cases, for example, is also low risk, right? Using ChatGPT to generate marketing copy. And you have human in the loop to make sure you review it before it goes to production. So I think, yes, AI is going to be here and is probably already using it, even if you have tell your employees not to use it. There's a term called shadow AI. They're probably using it on their personal device and their phone anyways to, answer emails or craft email replies, things like that. So how do you govern it properly? I think it's like what you need to figure out. What are my favorite AI tools? That's another great question. Definitely, I'm still old school ChatGPT. I think it's just getting better and better. And if you look at, the funding side of things, they are the most well funded, right? I do sometimes switch to Gemini or Claude because they also have very good accuracy. And Google in particular is probably the most worthy opponent opponent of OpenAI because Google have so many product tools that's already collecting tons of data, tons of our data in the past that they can use to train their AI models, so their results tend to be also very accurate, more accurate. Are AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot influenced by advertisers or sponsors in the results they provide? Mm. So that is actually definitely a whole new field that is being explored right now. you're probably familiar with SEO, search engine optimization. There's definitely AI optimization industry. It's very nascent, but definitely is started, I would say. And yes, so being critical in, your AI search result, whether it's because it can potentially hallucinate, right? A lot of lawyers use, early days use ChatGPT to do their case law studies, and they found out that, actually that case that's not applied, right? Over 20 lawsuit has been documented that have this issue in the past. So when you're using tools like ChatGPT, you have to have that critical mind thinking, and also always check the references. Does the person, case, research paper that ChatGPT cited actually exists, right? Oh, sorry. Another tool that I like to use is actually Gamma. I actually use Gamma to create the slides that I did. Literally, you can enter runtime and we can create the whole slide for you. But like it's not like that's done, right? In a lot of cases, you need to have that subject matter expertise to then go and refine it, change it. But it does give you a very good starting point, I would say, for especially for less graphical people like me. I'm not a designer, so for me to come up with those nice graphics, it will take me forever. So I feel like those are good use cases. And that's, I think, gamma.app or gamma.ai. Let me see. Gamma.app, I think. Yeah. Another popular tool that I like to use, sorry, going back to that question, is actually, I think, called Hello. Oh, no, Hey, I think. Hey, sorry. Hey Jen. So if you want a fast, quick way, it's not as good as hiring real human actor to do your promotional marketing video. But if you're on a budget like us, right? Hey Jen is actually not bad, especially if I'm doing like training videos. I don't need to have fancy actors to do it. Like I use Hey Jen to do our training videos now. Okay, what are the practical first steps that can be taken for small business and orgs to build out the first pass at an AI implementation and governance policy? So again, I think I would reference either the ISO 42001, which by the way, you can buy for $200, about $200, but the language is very technical. So like if you don't have like a ISO compliance or you don't enjoy working technical paper, then I would say to save that $200. The Microsoft AI Responsible AI Framework and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework are definitely more accessible. And then from the implementation side, there's this whole industry or whole term called vibe coding. In case you haven't heard about it, you can Google this. Or ChatGPT it, or go to YouTube. There's a whole bunch of tutorial that you can do. Basically, you ask a chatbot to build an entire AI application for you if you're thinking of building an AI product. Or there's a lot of consulting services that can help you, or you can apply for government funding like SenGen that I mentioned before that have actual technical resources to help you figure out what the right AI use cases is. Oh, another big one that I should mention, and I forgot to mention, is actually Factor Institute. They also have a very good, what they call Fastening program. It is also nonprofit funded by federal funding. They received $2 billion, I believe, to establish this research center in Toronto. And part of their Fastening program is to help established businesses incorporate AI, accelerate their AI adoption. So look at that as well. And then I think I've talked to, WeTech here in the Windsor region where they can probably apply for some of these government funding to help SMBs in the region adopt AI. So we should definitely have that conversation, Yvonne. What do you think is the best way to train a workshop on how to use generative AI responsibly? Do you recommend in-house training programs or outsource from some kind of B2B companies? Funny you ask, because we actually do training as well. When we see that the companies are earlier on in their AI adoption journey. So our training and advisory program usually start with two things and combine into one really. One is a AI literacy course, one is a responsible AI course, and the end deliverable is that you will have some kind of AI policies that's adapted to your organization's needs. Or if it's a very straightforward, industry, then like 42,001 definitely we cover most of your needs is what we found. And there's actually, I totally forgot. I'm so glad you guys are asking this question because on our website we actually have our certification course, and that was there on purpose because it actually has government funding in place already. So for existing employees, it covers up to, I want to say 83%. If it's new employees, 100% for training, for responsible AI training. So definitely follow up with me. I can provide more details on that. Owners.com. I think I get all that question a lot. Like, so owners are not covered. It has to be employees. What else? I think that's all the questions.
Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, we've got another.
Oh,
Do
wait,
you think that partnership between small business could help them to access AI solutions to lower costs?
I guess who's the them in your question? Can you clarify, Larissa?
Yes, what I want to say is, for example, if I can group with different small businesses that have like the same problems or the same goals with the AI solutions, we can partner and find an option that works for us, and we can do it lower cost. I don't know if that's something that is recommended, is something that is happening, or is better to have a specific solution for each small business.
So I think that's also where workforce or retail could come in. Like clearly there's a market demand here. I think like workforce could be that enabler to facilitate, like, if more interest from different SMBs in the region are interested in having an AI literacy course or responsible AI or even 42,000 certification as a cohort, right? We can do it like that and it will become, yeah, more cost effective for everybody. And it's also good to have this network and learning because the AI technology is moving very fast. The regulatory landscape is moving very fast. So what we've been building, right, we build alongside a whole ecosystem. So I can see that, as an adopter in the region, you can also form an ecosystem there and do that together.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being able to continue these conversations across the board. Thank you, everyone, for these thoughtful questions. And thank you, Fion, for your time today and for your expertise. Like we said, a recording of this session and the resources mentioned will be available online shortly. I'm going to put the links to all that in the chat. And if you have not yet shared your thoughts about the AI Workforce Summit, please, if you could consider taking that 3 to 5 minute survey, because your feedback not only makes it possible for us to host these future events, but it helps us improve. And it also ensures that these conversations and these resources that we deliver continue to meet the needs of this community, because your voice matters, and we want to hear what you're interested in to make more of these things happen. Thank you so much to everyone for your time today. Thank you for joining us, and I will be in touch shortly with the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.